Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Shalom, I'm David Mencer, Israeli government spokesman for the National Public Diplomacy Directorate here in the Office of the Prime Minister. Questions in the chat, please, which we'll get to after a very few words from me. It's Tuesday, the 8th of October, a day after the State of Israel marked the anniversary of Hamas's deadly jihadist attack on October 7th, the worst attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust. But here's the difference. Today, Israel fights back. We are at war and we will win. Since that black day, we have been fighting. This is a war for our very existence, as the Prime Minister has called it, Israel's war of redemption. Since October 7th, we've been attacked on 7 fronts. Our counterattack against our enemies of Iran's axis of evil is both decisive and crucial to ensure Israel's future and security. Just yesterday, on October 7th, Israel took rocket and missile fire from Gaza, from Yemen, and Lebanon. As of 3 p.m. today, in the last day alone, 135 rockets, drones, and missiles have been fired by the Hezbollah terrorists from Lebanon into Israel. This is not a sustainable reality. The IDF will end the threat of Hezbollah in defense of our country. The war will conclude when we have achieved all of our objectives, toppling Hamas's evil rule, bringing all of our hostages home, 101 of them, the living and the deceased alike, thwarting any future threat to Israel from Gaza, and returning our residents in the south and in the north safely to their homes. It's Israel's obligation. It's Israel's right to defend itself. Israel will protect its own sovereignty, its citizens, in accordance with international law. Now to sad news of fallen Israeli soldiers. IDF casualties since the start of this war have unfortunately risen to 730. Warrant officer in the reserves, Aviv Magen, was 43 years old and from Beirut. He fell in battle on the Lebanese border. First Sergeant Noam Yisrael Avdor was just 20 years old and from Kadimot Soran. He fell in battle in the north of Gaza. Both of their funerals will take place today. As the Prime Minister said yesterday, we bow our heads in memory of our brothers and sisters, our sons and daughters, the parents and the elderly who were butchered by Hamas terrorists, boys and girls who were murdered in cold blood, men and women who were slaughtered, entire families that were destroyed. We remember the heroes who fell in battle in Gaza, in Lebanon, and other sectors. Thanks to them, we have turned the enemy back and destroyed most of their capabilities and freed many of our hostages. But we are determined to complete the work. We send a prayer for the well-being of our wounded heroes and are grateful from the depths of our heart for the heroism of our fighting men and women of the IDF and our security services. The Prime Minister said our hearts are with the bereaved families whose loved ones have been cut down and whose lives were cruelly changed. May their memories be a blessing forever. Now an update from COGAT and their work coordinating aid into Gaza. In the last few days, we've seen media reports repeating the lie that has taken hold once again that Israel is blocking aid into Gaza. The truth is precisely the opposite. Since the start of this war, we've coordinated over 1,070,000 tons of aid, over 54,000 trucks into Gaza. Israel does not block aid going into Gaza. The aid organizations prioritize the type and amount of aid, and we are happy to facilitate whatever is coordinated. Over the last few months, aid is being coordinated from Egypt, based on the abilities of the United Nations aid organizations to pick up the aid from the Gazan side of the Kerem Shalom crossing. You can get all the details of Israel's humanitarian aid efforts on COGAT's website. So that's the end of our briefing today. Now take questions in the chat, which you should put together with your outlet. Okay, first question here is from Joel Pollack at Breitbart News. Yesterday, both President Biden and Vice President Harris issued identical statements regarding Lebanon. And you give the statements, you quote here, we also continue to believe that a diplomatic solution across the Israel-Lebanon border is the only path to restore lasting calm and allow residents on both sides to return safely to their homes. Is a diplomatic solution possible? And you ask a second question, could you describe the current situation as it affects the Christian communities of southern Lebanon? Thank you very much for that question, Joel. Let me answer it this way. We've made our war aims extremely clear. When it comes to diplomacy, we are always in favor of diplomacy, even now. But we are operating, after a year of failed attempts at diplomacy, we are operating to remove the threat to our people in our north. We will not accept the existence of a terrorist military force on our northern border. We know what their intent is. Their intent is to kill our people. Hezbollah planned another October the 7th type massacre. The reason people were killed on October 7th, let's be clear, was because they were Jewish. Now, the Hezbollah fire on us is also because we are Jewish people living in our own homeland. As the Prime Minister has made absolutely clear, no one should be a refugee in our own country. Our people will go back home. We are always in favor of diplomacy, even now. Our people will be able to move back to the north, back to their kibbutzim, back to their farms, back to their villages, and back to their towns. Whatever it takes, our people will go back to their homes. For a year now, since October the 8th, Hezbollah terror army has been attacking Israel without any provocation. Why? Because we exist. Because Israel exists. Its incessant firing of rockets, of missiles, and of drones, which are designed to cause harm to our people. 135 just today. Now, to impose this terror and to disrupt daily life is not sustainable. The Prime Minister has made absolutely clear we are prepared for both defence and offence. As for Hezbollah's command and control structure, we've eliminated much of it. Nasrallah, the Hezbollah leader, eliminated. Their command structure, eliminated. Thousands of terror targets in Lebanon have been hit. Strategic weapons placed in the heart of civilian communities inside Lebanon have been taken out. All of these weapons were ready to be fired at a moment's notice at us. Where were they aimed to be fired? Right here in Israel, at our people, in Israel, but no more. Hezbollah perform a double war crime. They abuse the civilian population in Lebanon by using it as a human shield, and they hide its weaponry amongst them, and they fire at our Israeli civilian population. The state of Lebanon and Hezbollah terror organization, which operates at the guidance of Iran, let's always be clear, this is the Iranian regime which is guiding this conflict, this war. They are responsible for the escalation of the security situation in our north, which is in violation of the international law and UN Security Council resolutions 1559 and 1701. And you asked a second question about the current situation as affects the Christian communities of southern Lebanon. I don't have any update for you on that at the moment. For further updates on that, the IDF will be the first people to, the first organization to put out any statement on that. Next question here is from Khazra Najee from BBC's Persian television. Is it true that the Israeli political establishment has already decided on the shape and detail of a response to the Iranian missile attack last week, and the timing is left to the armed forces commanders to be decided on operational needs? Thank you for that question, Kazra. Let me answer you this way. Israel has both a responsibility and the right to defend ourselves, and also to respond to this Iranian aggression. As you correctly put, Iran has now twice launched hundreds of missiles. It's one of the largest ballistic missile attacks in history. No state in the world would tolerate such an attack against our cities and against our citizens. The Iranian axis of evil, and let's be clear that Iran declares its very intention to destroy this country. Indeed, it's the only member of the United Nations that openly calls for the destruction of another country. Now, as you are BBC's Persian television, I want to make this clear. We are not talking about Iran's people. Iran's people are as much victims of the regime, of the Iranian regime, as Israel is. Iran subjugates its own people. It denies them the basic freedoms, the freedom of who to love, of how to dress, of which religion to be open to be free to worship. So they're against all of the freedoms, and they use their animosity. The regime uses animosity to Israel to try and cling on to power, as many states have done in the past. Most of those have stopped that facade and decided to make peace with this country with normalization agreements. Now, the Iranian regime has stated very clearly that it wishes to destroy this country, and it's operating towards that end on 7 fronts, Iran behind each and every one of them. They formed a stranglehold against Israel. It's a ring of armed terror armies. We know it's Hezbollah in the north, it's Hamas in Gaza, the Houthis in Yemen, and other militias. We'll answer you this way. Israel is on high alert, and we'll be very clear with you that we will exact a heavy price for any aggression against this country from whichever arena. We are focused right now on the limited ground operation in southern Lebanon. The IDF is operating against the Iranian terror targets in our region, adjacent to our border, in order to eliminate the threat which they pose to our towns in the north. And we know that the IDF is also operating against Hezbollah targets adjacent to our border in operations above and below ground. And we know that we've taken out hundreds of terrorists and terror tunnels and weaponry and missiles and launchers. And we've detected many more, and we will destroy many more. But Israel understands the threat from Iran. We know very well about the Iranian regime's abilities, and we say this very clearly. We know precisely how to defend ourselves, not against Iran's people, but against the Iranian regime itself. Next question here is from Leo Soroka from the Washington Post. Does the addition of reserve brigades signal an expansion of Israel's ground offensive in Lebanon? Thank you for that question, Lior. For further information about what we're doing in Lebanon, you should always go to for the practical information, you should always go to the IDF. But we have a very clear objective when it comes to Lebanon and Hezbollah. It's very, very simple. We want to get our people home. We have no territorial aims, ambitions in Lebanon. Of course not. The border between Israel and Lebanon is precisely where the UN asked for it to be. It's called the Blue Line. Unfortunately, it's Hezbollah which has not adhered to, and the Lebanese government, which has not adhered to UN Resolution 1701, which specifically calls, and I've named and I've quoted chapter and verse in my previous briefings. it says very specifically that Hezbollah should not be between our border and the Litani River. In the absence of any diplomatic resolution to stop that rocket fire, to let our people come home, then we will do the job of pushing Hezbollah back behind the Litani River for the simple objective of getting our people back home. It is simply inadmissible that our own people, 70,000 of them, are evicted from their own homes in Israeli sovereign territory. Okay, that's the last question for today. So in the meantime, thank you for joining us. We'll have another briefing tomorrow. We're available for interview, and please do stay safe and see you again tomorrow. Thank you. Bye-bye.